Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Alka Halberg. I am part of the cohesive marketing team. I will be assisting the team today with the webinar as moderator. We will give it another 30 to 60 seconds to allow all the attendees to join us on this call. Great, I think we can start. Welcome to our next webinar in Cohesive's Maximo Back to Basics webinar series. Our aim for this webinar series is to highlight existing base Maximo functionality and features that your organization may not be using today to help you maximize your return on investment. We will be presenting this content in the Maximo application suite to give you an opportunity to see MAS and specifically the managed application. Our focus for this series will be on functional topics with plans to incorporate more technical topics in the future. Note that this webinar will be recorded and distributed post-webinar. All the attendees are currently set to listen-only mode, but feel free to post any questions or comments in the chat or question box. Should you have any technical questions or problems, please log it with the GoToWebinar technical team in the form of a question mark or help section on the panel itself. I will be handing you over to the host in a bit, but let me do a quick introduction of Cohesive first. Cohesive helps owner-operators embed digital ways of working that drive operational efficiency and enhance asset performance across all stages of the lifecycle. We at Cohesive draw on core tech solutions to support our clients. These solutions include Bentley's Infrastructure Cloud, iTwin, and IBM Maximo, for which Cohesive is the largest implementer. So without further ado, let's dive in and hand you over to our host, Bill Holt. Over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Morning, good evening. My name is Bill Holt. I'm an electrical engineer. I've worked for a public utility for 27 years, and I'm on my second career as a consultant with Cohesive. I've used Maximo for most of my career. I started in version 2.1, and I started as an administrator and then moved on doing asset management within the utility. What we're going to go through today is job plan sequencing. It's been around in Maximo for a very long time. We're going to talk about what the scope of the presentation is, and then we're going to get into job plan sequencing, how to use it, what it's used for, some of the business rules or business logic required to set it up. And we're going to do 3 use cases to show and highlight some of those business rules. The first one is a simple spring fall inspection, and then we're going to add in a bi-monthly inspection to that. And the last one is a real life vehicle inspection where I've taken a manufacturer's maintenance routines and I'm putting it into Maximo. And then there'll be a short recap of the business rules and questions and answers at the end. So what's in scope? We're going to talk about the job plan sequence applicate or a screen on the PM tab. We're going to talk about sequence numbers and how to set them. We're going to talk about how to set the starting point for a PM, because lots of times when you're implementing Maximo, there could be a existing facility that you're trying to set up and it would already have some routines against it. This is not a presentation about best practice for creating job plans, and it's not about best practice for creating PMs. I'm strictly focused on the PM sequencing. So the first thing is job plan sequencing is used to generate work orders using different job plans in a set order. Okay, so we want to use one job plan. We want to create work orders using, or sorry, one PM, and we're going to create work orders from that PM, but each work order can have a different scope of work based on the job plan that's going to be generated. Okay. One of the advantages of that is you end up with less PM records to manage and maintain. The first scenario is going to be a really simple one. We're going to do a spring fall, and the spring inspection would be things like setting up the AC unit, making sure the air conditioning filters and that are checked. The fall one is going to be turning on the heaters, making sure that the filters and the elements are all working. There will be some common tasks between them, as in you might check security, you might check the building condition, seals on the doors, building condition, just basic facility inspections. So the two job plans I've set up, these are kind of the tasks at a high level. As I just stated, the job plan for spring has the air conditioning unit. So I'm checking the filter, the motors, the control settings, and then there's some common tasks as in checking the locks, securities, windows, general building. For the fall one, I'm checking the heater, filter, and the elements itself and the blower motor. So those would be specific to the fall inspection. For my part of the world, we want the fall inspection to come out in October, and I want the spring inspection to come out in April. And every second time, I want the spring one to show up. So the sequence number in the PM that we enter represents the nth time that a work order is generated, and that's the sequence number that we want to put in there. And in this case, it's 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 is the sequence we want. What Maximo does is it takes the counter reading on the PM and it adds 1 to it and then determines which sequence number is divisible evenly by into the counter reading. So in October, the PM counter is 0 because I'm starting a brand new PM. If I add 1 to it, it's 1, and only 1 is divisible by that. In April, the counter will be 1. If I add 1 to that, it's 2, and 2 is divisible by 2, so it's going to pick the job plan of the spring. It always takes the largest number that divides evenly by the PM counter plus 1. Okay, and I've set it so that the fall is sequence 1 and spring is 2 only based on today's date. Okay, so it in a in the next example, I'll be changing that up so we can set it any way we want. So if you wanted to generate it from a master PM, you could, and the master could have one either job plan set as 1. There must always be one job plan with a sequence of 1, which is the primary or default job plan that will be used to generate the work order. So my PM, it's at every 6 months. I'm going to set the start date October 1st. Because I want the PM to generate every October 1st and every April 1st, I'm going to use a fixed schedule. And as my chart showed, I'm going to set the sequence of 1 on the fall and 2 on the spring. So let's jump into Maximo. Okay. You'll note that I'm using Maximo 9011. One of the things that this is a base Maximo. You'll see though, if I come in here, that all of the utility add-ons are added. I think that adds a little bit of confusion. I will be using all of the base Maximo applications. I am showing you the fall inspection job plan. These are the tasks. You can see at the bottom, I have the heater one in this one and the elements in there. If I go to the spring job plan, it's kind of the same job plan, only at the bottom, I have my air conditioning checks. So that's what I showed you in the original. So let's go into preventative maintenance. I'm going to create a new record. I'm going to put it against a location. I'm just using existing Maximo data. Depending upon your business, depending upon um, your rules around it, all of this works with lead time and active time and seasonal dates and whatever else. Everything still works in here. For today's example, I'm going to ignore lead time, supervisors, assignments, all the rest of that base Maximo functionality, and only focus on the job plan sequencing. Okay. For this one, I'm going to enter the job plan on the main PM tab, and I'm doing that so that everyone will understand what happens by default when you enter it here. The frequency tab, I'm going to set the frequency to 6 months. I am going to make sure that the last work order start date to calculate next date is checked. And again, that creates a fixed schedule. I'm going to set the estimated due date to be October 1st. I'm going to skip seasonal dates because they don't apply to this. And in the job plan sequence tab, you can see I entered the fall inspection on the PM tab. It automatically put in a sequence of 1. Okay. This is a required field, and anything you put on the PM tab will automatically become the default or the primary job plan. Okay. I can add the spring job plan to this. And I'm going to set it as a sequence of 2 as I showed in my presentation. Okay. I'm then going to save my record. Okay. So I have 2 job plans in here, a fall and a spring with a sequence of 1 and 2. The 2 represents this will come out every second time. Under the more actions, there's a view sequence option. And this just shows the sequence, and it shows it from where you're currently at. Because this is a new PM, the counter is at 0, so it's basically starting right from the beginning, and it's got 1, 2, 1, 2, and it's doing fall, spring, and it will continue on with that. Okay. If I change the status to active, this PM, if you have an automation script or the PM generator, work order generator running, it would then automatically pick this work order up, again, based on your lead days or days before, and it would automatically create the work order, and it would create it according to the schedule that's here. Okay, so the fall one is going to come out first and then the spring. In the next scenario, I'm going to keep my spring and fall, only I'm going to add in a monthly routine every second month. My requirement is to keep the spring and fall in April and October. For the hemisphere I live in, that's when we would be swapping things over. April is a fourth month, October's the 10th month. So my bi-monthlies are also going to be on even months of the year. So February, June, August, December is going to be when I want my monthly inspection to come out. I created a little table on the side here and I put in the spring in April, I put the fall in October, and then I filled in the other rows with bi-monthly. Okay. This allows me to kind of identify that the spring is going to come out every third and the fall is going to be every sixth. So that sets my sequence numbers. Bi-monthly is 1, spring is 3, fall is 6. Okay. And again, I like to create these charts. I've created them for just about every job plan sequence I've ever created in my career. And I find them a nice way just to visualize what I'm going to set up in Maximo. Okay. So anything that's yellow is going to be the PM generated job plan. So again, bi-monthly is 1, the spring is 3, so every third time it's going to try and come out. The fall is every sixth time it's going to come out. Okay, so looking at the PM counter, if the PM counter is 5, if I add 1 to that, 6. 6 is divisible by 6, and therefore the sixth one will come out. It's the largest number that's divisible evenly into the PM counter plus 1. Okay, and the same thing goes when the PM counter gets to 12 or gets to 11. 6 divides into 11 plus 1 is 12. It divides evenly by 2. Okay. So one of the things I want to make sure people understand is this sort of starts in December is where my sequence sort of starts. But today, the first one I want to generate is going to be in June. If I take today's date and I go, um, it's May. The next one that's going to generate is in June, is the first even month. And therefore, I want to set my PM counter to 3. That will mean the June PM will come out. So once I set it to 3, I should have 2 bi-monthlies, and then the fall one should come out. Okay. And I'm going to do that by changing the PM counter on the PM. So my job plans for this, I'm going to reuse my existing job plans for the spring and fall, and I've added a bi-monthly job plan, which is just the common tasks from the spring and fall. My PM, the frequency is going to be 2 months. My start date is going to be June 1. And again, I want to make sure that it's a fixed schedule. I want it to come out the first of the month all the time. Regardless of when it gets completed, I still want it to be generated at the first of the month, so it's going to be a fixed schedule. My sequences are 1, 3, and 6. And again, I'm going to set the PM counter to 3 so that the June work order is correct and I get the fall at the right time. So let's go back into Maximo. And again, I'm just going to start a new PM record. I'm going to use the same location that I did last time because we're in a weird environment. In this case, I'm not going to set a job plan in here. I'm going to enter all the job plans on the job plan sequence tab. The frequency is going to be 2 months. And in this case, I want it to come out in June 1st. Again, making sure that the last work order start date is checked so that I have a fixed schedule. Again, I'm going to skip the seasonal dates, and now I'm looking at the job plan sequence. My monthly inspection is going to be sequence 1. Okay. Again, there's got to be at least one job plan with a sequence of 1. My spring is going to be sequence 3, and my fall is going to be sequence 6. Okay. So if I view the sequence right now, it will show the way my chart showed. It goes 113, 116, 113, and just repeats after that. I just missed the spring inspection last month. So again, I want the first one to come out to be a monthly, but I want the third one to come out to be the 6th. So I'm going to set on the PM tab, there's a counter, and under the more actions, there's a set PM counter, and I'm going to set that to 3 as I described earlier. Okay, so now the PM counter is set to 3, and I go and view my sequence. I'm going to get June, August, October. And so I've now changed my start position within the sequence so that the fall inspection shows up correctly in October. And it will continue to run through that 2 months, and then the spring, 2 months, and then the fall, and it will continue. So at any point, I have the ability to set this PM counter to adjust which work order is generated using the correct PM. And again, if you're setting this up for existing facilities, you probably already have some routines that are done on it. You would want to adjust that work order sequence to get the right job plan out next. So some of the setup rules. Talked about most of these already. Every PM must have a job plan with a sequence of 1. That's the default. That is the primary job plan that will come out when there is no other sequence divisible by the counter plus 1. Okay. The job plan numbers must be unique per PM record. And I'll show that in the next one. I'll actually try to put in a duplicate and Maximo throws an error. The value of the sequence field represents the nth time that that job plan will be used to generate a work order. Okay, so in the cases we've seen that it's every second time, every third time, every sixth time. And the default, which is sequence 1, is when the PM counter plus 1 isn't divisible by a larger sequence number. And I just talked about the first one. It's a little wordy on the slide, but basically it's just saying that the counter starts at 0. you need to add one to it and then do the math to determine what is the largest sequence number that's divisible evenly to identify which job plan is going to be used. Okay, so vehicle maintenance. The reason I threw this in is because this is one's going to be based on a meter. Maximo doesn't care how you trigger the PM because it's using the PM counter to identify the correct job plan. Whatever you're using to trigger the PM changes the counter. Every time a work order is generated or you manually adjust it, it will adjust the job plan used on the next work order. So this is a real life manufacturer's maintenance chart for a vehicle. I stands for inspection, R stands for replace, and you could set up your PM or your job plans based on these routines. So again, I created this chart. I've done it all the time. Across the top are my mileage. All of those numbers are divisible by 4, and I have to have a sequence number of 1. So I took all the mileage and I divided them by 4, and I ended up with sequences of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. Putting the mileage on the left, I then can draw out my sequence numbers, and I can identify where or which job plan will be used by identifying the largest number that's divisible by the PM counter plus 1. Okay. Um, I will state that in real life, manufacturers of some engines do weird things and they throw in odd numbers. In this case, they're all divisible by 4 and it works out very nicely for me. I have seen where business decisions had to be made because they threw in an odd number like a 21,000 mile inspection, which doesn't line up with anything. So just be aware of that. I have a good example, but in real life, you're going to have to make some business decisions in some cases. So in order to facilitate the building of this, I need 5 job plans. The activities in each job plan would be built off of this table. So the first 4 items would be the 4,000 mile job plan, and each column represents a different job plan and what I'm going to do. My PM, it's going to be meter based. I didn't set a start date because this is make believe. And if it's a brand new vehicle, I would set it for the 4,000 miles. I'd probably put in the current kilometer or current mileage because I've never seen a vehicle that came out of the factory with 0 miles on it. They all have something. And so I would set the current mileage on the thing before I created this PM and have it kick off. And if it's a used vehicle, again, I can adjust the sequence based on the current mileage of the vehicle by setting the PM counter. In this case, because I'm using meter based, I'm going to make sure that it's a floating schedule so that the next PM is going to be based on when the work order gets completed. I'm never great at getting the mileage exact when I go to get my oil changed or do service on it. And so I want to start the next interval based on when I complete the routine, not when it should have come out. Sequences are as I stated earlier. So jumping back into Maximo, I'm going to start a new PM record again. Again, I'm using an existing asset that I know about. In your system, uh, you could uh, you could do it against a location or an asset, but because it's got a meter in this case, typically it would be against an asset. Okay. On the frequency tab, meter-based frequency. This asset has 1 meter against it, and it's an odometer reading, and it's in miles. The frequency is going to be 4,000. And again, generated ahead by and alerts all still work. Um, for today's presentation, I'm going to ignore that. Um, if there was existing miles in here, I could put in last work order information if I wanted to set it up. So if it came with a couple 100 miles on it, I would put that in here and I would put today's date in, and then it would try to calculate out as I entered meter readings on the asset. Again, skipping seasonal dates. On the job plan sequence, the 4,000 kilometers is 1, or sorry, 8,000 mile 1. This is 2, 3, 4, and 6. Oh, on the frequency tab, I forgot to look at this. I don't want it to be a fixed schedule. I want it to be a floating schedule, as I stated, because I want the mileage to drive the PM, and I want the PM completion or the work order completion to trigger the next maintenance or the start of the next maintenance interval. So I want to make sure that this is turned off only because I'm using a meter-based frequency. Okay. In lots of cases, there could be a time-based catch. So if the vehicle isn't being used, the oil would still deteriorate and you'd still want to do some inspections on it. So you might have a catch time-based, but that would again would be based on, in this case, the frequency of when the last work order was completed. Okay. On the PM tab, the counter is at 0. So when I look at the view sequence, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 6, 1, 4, 3, 3, which is what also showed in my presentation. So I'm just going to bounce back there for a second. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 6, 1, 4, 3, 2, and then it repeats at 48,000. That's exactly what's showing in here as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 6, and then it starts to repeat after 48,000. It starts the same sequence over again. Okay. If it was a used vehicle or an existing vehicle and I'm setting it up and this, I could now, based on mileage and the job plan sequence, adjust it, or sorry, the PM counter, I could adjust it to start at any point I wanted it to. Okay. And again, that's just using the PM counter in here. So some of the things I've said is you can't have, you must have a job plan with a sequence of one. If I try to delete the one that's got a one in it, it won't allow me to do it. It's got to exist. Okay. I can also, um, I'm just going to add another job plan in here just at random. Um, and I'm just making stuff up here just to show you that if I try to put a sequence number in that's also used up here, when I go to save, it throws an error because you can't have a duplicate sequence number. Okay, and I'm just going to delete that. That was just to show. So the rules are must have a job plan with a sequence of one, and you can't have duplicate sequence number. They all must be unique within a single PM. Okay. And again, if I change the status to this, it would then start auto-generating based on your organization's rules. And let's go back. So quick recap, every PM has got to have a default. It's got to have a primary job plan with a sequence of one. The job plan numbers must be unique, and I just demonstrated that by trying to put in a duplicate. The value of the sequence number represents the nth work order generated. And so every second time, every third time, every sixth time, yet that's what represents the sequence number. Okay. I determine where I am in the sequence by looking at the PM counter and adding one to it and seeing what is the biggest sequence number that divides evenly into that calculation. Okay. The reason for adding one is the PM counter starts at 0, which out of the box Maximo says there's been no work orders generated. In order to set the sequence to where you want it to be generated correctly, and I did that in the bi-monthly, is you set the PM counter to the right position within the sequence so the right job plan is used to generate a work order. And that brings us to questions and answers.
Thank you, Bill. Right, we have some time for questions in the question box, but I don't see any, so we will give it a minute or so if people have questions. Please do drop them in the question or chat box. Doesn't look like it though. So if you do have questions, please feel free to reach out to the team via our website or via LinkedIn. We will happily help you guys. There we go. So Bill, if you cancel a PM, will the sequence remain?
I didn't get the question. Is there some way I can read it?
Yeah, it's in the question box, but if you cancel a PM, will the sequence remain?
If you cancel the PM or if you cancel the work order, what happens
Yeah.
in Maximo if you cancel a work order is it reverts the work or the job or the PM back to the previous counter. Canceling a work order kind of resets the counter back to where it was before you generated the work order. So everything would remain, it just wouldn't advance one to the next spot in sequence. And that's out of the box Maximo functionality.
Great. Thank you, Bill. Um, Okay, it looks like that's all questions we have for today. So with that, we can then conclude our webinar. I want to thank you, Bill, for joining us today, as well as our attendees for listening. If you want to reach out, as I mentioned, to the presenters or the team at Cohesive, you can do so via our website or via LinkedIn. Note, we have all the previous webinars available on YouTube. The recording of this webinar will also be made available to you in the email afterwards or on our channel. So that is a wrap for today's webinar. Please register and join us for our upcoming webinar on June 19th with the topic Management of Change. Paul, thank you again, and I wish everyone a great day.